Story 1. The Man in the Woods. I've always loved hiking. There's something about being deep in the woods, away from traffic and people, that feels peaceful. But this story is about the one time hiking made me wish I had never left home. It happened 3 summers ago. I had taken a solo weekend trip up to a well-known trail system in northern Vermont. I had been hiking for years, so going alone didn't scare me, at least not until this trip. I started early in the morning, the air still damp from the night. The forest was quiet, except for the occasional bird. The trail wound uphill through thick pine trees, and the deeper I went, the less sound there seemed to be. That was my first clue that something was off. Usually, you hear chipmunks, birds, even the wind moving through branches. But this stretch of forest felt dead silent, as if it were holding its breath. Still, I pressed on. My plan was to hike about 8 miles in, camp near a small lake, then head back the next day. Around noon, I stopped for water and a snack. I was crouched on a fallen log, unwrapping a granola bar, when I heard it, a crunching sound. Footsteps. I froze, thinking maybe it was another hiker. But when I looked around, the trail behind me was empty. I called out a simple, "Hello," no answer. I brushed it off as maybe an animal and kept going. But after another mile, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was behind me. Every so often, I'd hear faint steps, not constant, but timed in a way that made it seem deliberate, like whoever it was didn't want to be noticed. When I finally reached the lake, I set up my small tent quickly, trying to ignore my paranoia. The lake was beautiful, reflecting the trees like a mirror. I didn't feel calm. I kept glancing over my shoulder. As the sun dipped, the forest darkened faster than I expected. I made a small fire, boiled some water, and tried to relax. That's when I heard the crunching again, not far away this time. I shined my flashlight toward the tree line. For a split second, I swore I saw someone standing between the trees. Not close enough to make out details, but tall, motionless, just watching. "Hey," I called out. My voice cracked a little. "Who's there?" "It's nothing." I told myself it was just my imagination, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I barely slept that night. Every twig snap jolted me awake. The next morning, I packed up quickly and started the hike back. My nerves were shot. The trail felt different now, darker, even though the sun was out. About halfway down, I came to a section where the trail narrowed with steep drops on either side. That's where I saw it, a set of fresh boot prints in the mud. They weren't mine. They were larger, and they followed my exact path up the trail. Whoever had been behind me, they had been there the whole time. Stomach dropped. I picked up my pace, practically speed walking. But the more I walked, the more I felt like I was being followed again. I didn't dare look back. Finally, I made it back to the trailhead parking lot. My car was the only one left there. I tossed my gear in the trunk and jumped inside. Just as I started the engine, I glanced at the edge of the woods. There was a man, tall, wearing a dark jacket, standing just at the tree line. He didn't move. He didn't wave. He just stood there, watching me. I peeled out of the lot, gravel spraying behind me. I didn't stop driving until I was back in town. To this day, I don't know who that man was or why he followed me. But I do know one thing. I will never hike alone again. Story 2. The Vanishing Campsite. Back when I was in college, a group of friends and I used to go hiking every spring break. Most people went to the beach, but we preferred the mountains. It felt like our tradition. This story happened on one of those trips, and it said the last time I ever went with them. There were 4 of us, me, my roommate Kyle, and 2 girls from our dorm, Jenna and Leah. We picked a trail in the Smoky Mountains that stretched about 15 miles. The plan was to hike a good portion, camp overnight, then hike back. We started off laughing, joking, taking photos. It was all fun at first. Well, as the trail narrowed and the trees got denser, the mood shifted. The woods felt heavier, like something was pressing down on us. By late afternoon, we found a small clearing near a stream and decided it was perfect to set up camp. We pitched 2 tents, gathered some wood, and got a fire going. As the night fell, the forest grew almost too quiet. We were sitting around the fire, telling stories, when Leah suddenly stopped mid-sentence and said, "Do you guys hear that?" First, none of us did. Then it came again. Faint footsteps circling the camp. Kyle grabbed a flashlight and shined it toward the trees, but there was nothing. Just blackness between the trunks. We tried to shake it off, telling ourselves it was a deer or raccoon. Still, nobody laughed after that. Eventually, we decided to call it a night. Jenna and Leah took 1 tent. Kyle and I took the other. The fire burned low, and soon, the only sound was the stream nearby. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, Kyle was shaking me awake. His whisper was frantic. "Dude, someone's outside." I held my breath and listened. Sure enough, soft, crunching footsteps circled our tent. Slow, deliberate, dragging. We sat frozen. Then, without warning, the footsteps stopped right outside. Whoever it was standing still, inches from us, separated only by thin fabric. Neither of us dared move. After what felt like forever, the footsteps continued and faded into the woods. The next morning, we woke to something worse. The girls' tent was gone. Not collapsed, not packed. Gone. The clearing looked untouched, except for the spot where their tent had been. Their bags, their shoes, everything. Gone. Kyle and I called out their names, ran around the clearing, even searched along the stream. No response. The forest swallowed our voices. Panic set in, with no sign of Jenna or Leah, and no idea what to do. We made the decision to pack what little we had left and head back down the trail. Every step felt like we were being stalked. When we finally reached the ranger station hours later, we tried to explain what happened, but when rangers went back to search the site, they found nothing. No tent, no footprints, no belongings. It was as if Jenna and Leah had never been there at all. To this day, no trace of them has ever been found. Their families were devastated. The official report lists them as missing hikers, but Kyle and I know that's not the truth. Something out there took them. And I'll never forget the sound of those footsteps circling our tent. Slow, deliberate, almost playful. Story 3, The Whispering Trail. This story happened 2 years ago when I was visiting family in Colorado. I'd gone on hikes before, but never at high elevation and never alone. That day, I decided to challenge myself with a trail locals called Raven's Hollow. It wasn't especially long, but it was known for being remote. Hardly anyone went up there, especially in the off-season. That isolation was exactly what I was looking for. At least, that's what I thought. The first few miles were quiet, almost peaceful. The trail wound through tall aspens, their white trunks standing out stark against the dark soil. But the higher I climbed, the stranger it felt. At one point, I stopped to drink water and realized something eerie. I had guaranteed heard a single bird the entire hike. No squirrels, no bugs buzzing, just silence. I tried to brush it off and kept going. But not long after, I heard something faint, almost like whispering. I froze, pulling out one of my earbuds. The sound was real. It wasn't the wind, either. It was distinct, like two people talking just out of earshot. I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" The whispers stopped instantly. I stood there, heart pounding, staring into the trees. Nothing moved. Finally, I forced myself to keep hiking, convincing myself my mind was playing tricks on me. But the farther I went, the worse it got. The whispers would return in bursts, faint, scattered, always behind me, never ahead. Sometimes they sounded closer, almost like someone was leaning over my shoulder. I swear, I even felt a warm breath against my ear once. At that point, I decided to turn around. But when I did, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The trail behind me looked different. It's the same trees, the same rocks, but it didn't look like the way I'd come. It looked unfamiliar, twisted somehow, as if the forest had rearranged itself. Still, I hurried down the path, desperate to get back. My boots crunched against the dirt, echoing in the silence. Then I heard it again. Not whispers this time, but footsteps, matching my pace. I spun around with my flashlight. For just a second, I saw a figure between the trees. Tall, thin, unnaturally still. The beam hit its face, or what should have been a face. But there was nothing, just a smooth, pale surface where features should be. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a route, and when I looked again, the figure was gone. I ran after that. I didn't care if I was making noise, didn't care if I twisted my ankle. I just ran. Somehow, I made it back to the trailhead. My car was sitting there like a lifeline, a T. But when I looked back at the path I had just escaped from, I swear I heard it one last time. That faint whisper, carrying on the breeze. "Don't come back." I slammed my door, locked it, and sped off. I haven't gone hiking since, okay? And to this day, I can still hear that voice when I close my eyes. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.